mister. Where to?
Driver, take me to the Columbia Recording Studios on 7th Avenue, please. Our theme means we've arrived at our destination for a quarter hour of the finest in jazz by America's all-time top trombonist, J.J. Johnson and his group, presented transcribed from New York City for your listening and dancing pleasure by your United States Air Force in cooperation with this radio station. J.J. Johnson and the group appear on this program through the courtesy of the American Federation of Musicians, James C. Petrillo, President. For the next 15 minutes, welcome to Manhattan Melodies. We'll be talking to our star, the fantabulous J.J. Johnson, after he opens our Air Force show with Paper Moon. That was Paper Moon, J.J. Johnson, from an album called First Place. J.J. Johnson, our guest on the Air Force show, has won just about every first place there is to win in just about every jazz poll in the past 5 years. Today, we're lucky enough to have a few words and some opinions from J.J. How are you?
Hi, Bob. It's very nice to be here, and it's nice to be talking on your show.
You're looking chipper.
Thank you.
How are things going with the group?
Very fine. As a matter of fact, we've got a new group right at present, and it's only, let's see, I suppose about 3 weeks old to be exact, and it's a little different approach in jazz groups in that we have no saxophones this time. We have cornet and trombone.
Well, speaking of different ways of presenting jazz through augmented groups, I guess one of the newest ideas since Jerry Mulligan's pianist quartet came when you and Kay Winding decided to have a group featuring 2 trombones standing out in front. Was that your idea, or Kay's, or somebody else's?
It just sort of happened. We were approached by Savoy Records to do an album off the beaten path, something a little different, and the idea came up for doing an album with 2 trombones and a rhythm section, which naturally was quite off the beaten path, and as far as we knew, had never been done before. So we talked it up, and we cut this first album with the 2 trombones, Kay Winning and myself, and of course, drums, bass, and piano. And at first, it was an experimental type thing as far as keeping it together was concerned, but the album began to make quite a noise, and we decided to keep it going, and as a result of that, we stayed together for about 2 years.
And everybody's still swinging real hot and heavy. Well, we'll be asking some personal opinions after a word to you nurses. You nurses who've just graduated. You girls who've just gotten your degree in nursing. I suppose you're looking around and trying to get placed in a particular hospital and a particular community that you think is going to be nice and pleasant for your future. How would you like to be able to serve as a nurse in exotic countries like Japan, Germany? How'd you like to see France as a nurse in the United States Air Force Nurse Corps and see it as an officer? You know you can do it? Nurses in the Air Force enjoy all the privileges that go with officer's rank. If you're a graduate nurse between 21 and 35, investigate the immediate openings for assignment as a general duty nurse in the United States Air Force Nurse Corps. Do yourself a favor, girls. See your local Air Force recruiter about a sky-high future as an Air Force nurse. And away we go, J.J. Johnson and the group from the new album called Dial JJ5, the J.J. Johnson Quintet, Old Devil Moon. You ready, Jay?
Right.
There you have it, J.J. Johnson's quintet featuring Bobby Jasper, Tommy Flanagan, Wilbur Little, and Elvin Jones on drums, Old Devil Moon. J.J., it looks like we go our separate ways. Thanks a lot for being our guest on the Air Force Show.
Thank you, Bob.
And we hope to have you back real soon to keep us informed as to what's happening in the world of jazz. Take it easy. These have been Manhattan Melodies, presented transcribed from New York City by your United States Air Force and this radio station. J.J. Johnson and his orchestra appeared on the program through the courtesy of the American Federation of Musicians, James C. Petrillo, President. Manhattan Melodies is produced by your United States Air Force Recruiting Publicity Center in New York City for your local Air Force recruiter. And now this is Bob Rickman, inviting you to join us next week for another of America's top name bands. And in the meantime, reminding you that today and tomorrow, you're better off in the United States Air Force.
Thank you.